So I'm going to pass over Father Paul to lead us on prayer. Over you, Father, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to meet with you all this morning. And it's wonderful, so many people taking this time out on a Saturday morning, more or less bank holiday weekend. So I'm going to begin with a prayer. It's not my own, it's a prayer I have found that was written by Alan Paton. You may remember him. He was an author in South Africa. At the time, it was a very apartheid country. He was a white writer, but he was very opposed to this apartheid regime. And he used his skill as a writer to highlight the injustices and the problems of his society. He's best remembered for the book that he wrote, Cry the Beloved Country. And it was a real wake-up call for both Africans and the white people in South Africa at that time. The book was saying, if we don't do something, very soon, our country is going to just disintegrate and explode. And his prayer is a prayer for courage to do justice. O Lord, open my eyes that I may see the needs of others. Open my ears that I may hear their cries. Open my heart so that they need not be without succor. Let me not be afraid to defend the weak because of the anger of the strong, nor afraid to defend the poor because of the anger of the rich. Show me where love and hope and faith are needed, and use me to bring them to those places. And so, Lord, open my eyes and my ears, that I may, this coming day, be able to do some work of peace for you. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Thank you so much. Well, the first things that we would like to share with you is why we decide to call this initiative, which is about getting ready for the general election, a year of encounter. The church tells us that as citizens, we have the right and duty to promote the common good by casting our vote. And this is in some of the official documents of the church. But probably many people in this Zoom call would agree that it's important to arrive to the polling station as well informed as possible, knowing what some of the views of the candidates are about the issues that we care about. So a year of encounter is quite a straightforward initiative. It's simple about invite your parish to reach out to your local candidate to find out more about that, about what are their views about the things that we care about, or better to say, as I say earlier, about some of the things that we care about as Catholics. But also it's giving candidates the opportunity to know a little more about us as a faith community rooted in their constituency, in our constituency, in our community. I know that there is many parishes who do a great work serving others in our communities, and sometimes, politicians, not always, sometimes they don't know too much about what we are doing, or this relationship is not built yet. So this is the invitation. This is what a year of encounter is, but we call a year of encounter because the invitation is to do that, is to reach out to your candidates in a spirit of encounter. Pope Francis invite all of us to build this culture of encounter. And a very simple way to say, well, what a culture of encounter actually means is to ensure that we reach out to others, and sometimes others that are not necessarily the same things that we think about, reach out to others across different and engage in true dialogue. And last week we ran the same training session, and I mentioned there that encounter demands curiosity, and encounter demands humility, and encounters demand respect, and a culture of encounter also demands the ability to listen in. And some people might think, oh, Andrea, that's very nice, but sounds a little naive, right? We need to engage with politicians. We need to ensure that they do whatever we think that is the right things to do. So I could sort of kindly challenge that view, because I think that these values like respect and listening and humility and curiosity and opening are quite countercultural values. We live in a society, the orthodoxy of the current contemporary society push us to create a very polarized atmosphere, not a very polarized society. And when the discussion is so polarized, basically are very few who benefit of that. It's very few that benefit of this fight between two groups in very different positions. So that doesn't mean the fact that we approach candidates in an attitude of encounter doesn't mean that we don't have clarity about what are we're asked and what our expectations. But this attitude that we are inviting your parish to discuss those issues. So probably for sure there are going to be other groups that are going to be talking about some of the issues that we are inviting your parish to talk about. Maybe cost of living, maybe migration, maybe climate. But our invitation, and hopefully one of the contributions of the Catholic community, could be this attitude of encounter. And the other important thing to remember that I would like to share with you today is also, let's don't forget that we stand in a very long tradition of being active involved in the big issues of our time. And when we reflect about the life of a very iconic figures of our traditions, we can see that many of these saints, I'm thinking particularly in a few saints, were people that were actively involved in trying to improve the socio-political circumstances of their time. And one of my favorite figures is St. Francis of Assisi, for example, that, according to tradition, St. Francis of Assisi didn't hesitate to go all the way from Italy to Egypt. And in an unprecedented gesture of political provocation, he crossed the enemy line to speak to the Sultan of Egypt in a time of brutality in the middle of the Crusades. And this is a good example of this encounter, no? And a good example of you can be a mystic, like St. Francis of Assisi was, and yet be actively involved in improving the conditions of others. Obviously, it's not that many of us could be mystic, but this is the inspiration. Another figure that I love is Catherine of Siena, this extraordinary woman of the 13th century. Imagine the 13th century, negotiating peace amongst principalities, states, and republics, hostile relations with all these states and republics in what today is Italy. And again, she was a mystic too. According to our tradition, they both received the stigmata. So this is the inspiration that we would like to take on. Christ as it should be at the center of our life, Christ at the center of our faith, and at the same time, nourishing and be deeply involved in what is going around us. So I think that I'm going to pass now to Alex, who is going to share why SVP and CAFOR are working together in this initiative and share a little more about a year of encounter. Alex, over you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Hi, everyone. It's really lovely to see all of you here. We have over 100 people in the room, which is incredible on a Saturday morning on a bank holiday weekend. So thank you very much for your time. So my name is Alessandra Schiara, and I work at the SVP, the St. Vincent de Paul Society, managing all of our social justice work. So as Andrea said, the Year of Encounter is an invitation to parishes and Catholics across the country to really turn the concern into action. And we wanted to work together as the SVP and CAFOR because we wanted to bring together Catholic organizations to amplify our voice and send a very clear message ahead of such an important moment, which is the general election. And while we work on different issues, with the SVP focusing on tackling poverty here in the UK and CAFOR focusing on tackling global poverty and justice globally, what we do share is a common vision and a common mission. And that mission is to create a better and more just society and to tackle poverty wherever that may be and in all of its forms. So as Catholic organizations, we wanted to use this moment as an opportunity to empower people, to empower Catholics across the country who want to see a society which does not accept poverty in any form. And as you will hear more in today's session, with this initiative, we're encouraging parishes to take part as a group so that their voice can be amplified even more. And this also means that we're eager to see collaboration between what might be SVP members, CAFOD volunteers, CAFOD supporters, but also Caritas groups and other Catholic organizations. This is by no means only for existing SPP members and Catholic volunteers. We want to be open because this is an opportunity to build relationships as well in our community. And it's very important to mention that while we're working together as CAFOD and SVP, we are also working in close cooperation with other Catholic organizations. And I think today we have a couple of people from the Caritas network, which is great to see. So we wanted to take this opportunity to also highlight other great initiatives happening across the network, including a campaign by CSAN called Do Justice, which seeks to empower Catholics across England and Wales. And Andrea is showing you the resource on the screen now. And this initiative empowers Catholics across England and Wales and helps them understand the roots and the foundations of Catholic social teaching. And I wanted to highlight this because these two initiatives really work well together. What we're trying to do this year is to equip people both with the theological framework and the foundation of Catholic social teaching, but also what we want to do is help people put all of that learning into practice, which is what we're talking about today. And we're going to do that by providing all of you with the support, resources and tools they need to make their voices heard with policymakers. And I could see a comment in the chat about the Columbans as well. Absolutely, it's great to have the Columbans on the call today. There are plenty of initiatives where we can join forces together. And what I also wanted to emphasize at an early stage is that what this initiative is not, is about political affiliation, and that's very important. We are not here to tell people how to vote, on who to vote for. That is absolutely not our role or our place. But what we are doing is encouraging people to engage and ask questions to their candidates, whichever political party they may be. So this is about policies. It's not about political parties in any way. So having now given you a bit of background as to what the purpose of this initiative is, we're now going to have some contributions which we had at our last webinar as well. And we're going to hear from some amazing speakers that will inspire everyone in the room. So first, we will hear from Father Paul Roche, which you've heard from at the beginning. And Father Paul is a Vincentian priest and has been a really incredible, passionate advocate for our social justice work. So I'll hand over the word back to you. Thank you, Father Paul.
Thank you very much, Andrea. We have 130 or whatever it is, people gathered here this morning. And I would love to hear from each individual in the gathering, what you are doing and why you are engaged in the struggle to bring justice, to bring equality, to bring fairness in our society where so much is lacking. I think probably all of us, and many of you are more directly involved in the struggle to end poverty and people suffering the effects of poverty. There's a frustration underlying it all, that we are caring for people who are the victims of what it's like, how they are sort of trapped in a corner of our society, and we care for them. But today we are trying to see, can we do something to change the way things are arranged in our society, to change how we are living together so that people no longer go on day after day, year after year, struggling the same effects of poverty in our society. We're choosing to focus on the great inequality that exists in our society. It's more or less accepted. That's how life is. It's normal. And yet it's absolutely awful and abhorrent. In the year 2023, just 50 of the wealthiest families in the UK had more wealth than half the entire population. 50, you could put them all on a bus, and yet they had more wealth than half the entire population of the country. Many families, you know very well, where both parents are working, they are unable to feed adequately and to care for their children. If they have more than two, they'll get very, very little assistance in caring for them. And today, you can take just the five richest families in the country, and they have greater wealth than the lower 20%. So five households with more wealth than 12.6 million people. How extraordinary. And that's how it is. And this inequality covers every aspect of life. Obviously, it colors the possibility of educational opportunities. It affects the living conditions of the children, how they are eating, so health issues, work experience, social participation, and so many of them are on the fringe. They have no voice, they have no way for speaking out. The Christian churches have been speaking out and speaking out strongly, yet every so often you'll notice they are dismissed by those who are really directing how our society operates. Even the words of Pope Francis, they are often dismissed. Those are private. Those are for people who adopt a religious stance in life. It's something personal and private, nothing to do with society. But that is not so, because the faith, a person of faith, it is something personal, absolutely, but it is not something private. And that's a hugely important distinction. Your faith is something personal. It changes who you are, how you respond, how you relate, what you focus on in your life. But it is not something private that you just hide away and don't share, because our faith demands very much that we reach out and bring the blessing, the good news, the hope of justice, of equality, of belonging to a much wider society. This is something very much associated with the preaching of Jesus, and in doing so, he was following in the tradition, the old tradition, right back to the time of the prophets. The prophet Isaiah, at one point he is saying, he's criticizing his people because he said, all you are concerned about is making fasting and doing various things like that, but this is not good enough. He says, is not this the kind of fasting I want? To loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, clothe them, and do not turn away from your own flesh and blood. So a very strong call to reach out. And Pope Francis has magnified this very, very much in our own time, because he insists that to be a believer, to be a disciple of Jesus, is in fact to be somebody who has a mission, who has a task, and it's about renewing and transforming society. In his encyclical, which is really a social encyclical, Frate Tutti, he devotes an entire chapter to the beautiful parable of Jesus of the Good Samaritan. It's in St. Luke chapter 10. And he says, all the disciples of Jesus are told, go and do likewise. And you are doing likewise as members of the SVP and associates with the CAFOD organization. So it's not just about caring for the people, as we do, who are suffering from inequality in society. Martin Luther King, speaking on this same parable, says, we are called, yes, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside. But that will only be an initial action. One day we must come and see that the whole Jericho Road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway. True compassion is more than giving a coin to a poor person. Compassion sees that an edifice that produces beggars must be restructured. A true revolution of values will look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth. So it's very, very, very clear. Our faith makes a strong call to us to hear the cry of the poor, not just to listen, but also to act so as we struggle to bring an end to poverty. We are challenged as members of the SVP and the CAFOD organization, we are challenged to do something that we cannot do just by ourselves. And that's why we are concerned that ultimately so much of the way we live in this society is not just by accident. It doesn't just happen. It is very, very much the result of decisions, of political decisions. It's planned to be like this. The people who make plans realize that their decisions may result in poverty for some people, but that's not their first concern. And so we are dealing with a planned situation in our society, and it's very right and correct that we try to speak loudly and have a voice with those who make the decisions that result in this inequality. We are called to do this type of radical change of values, change of attitude in our society. It's also important to realize that in our country at the present time, there's an estimated 8 million people who are not registered to vote. Now that means those people, they just don't count. They have no voice. Politicians are not interested. They won't affect anything. How can we, as people who are committed Christians, how can we ignore and bypass those people who have no voice? For whatever reason, they are not registered to vote. We have the opportunity to choose the people in our areas who ultimately are part of the decision-making for the whole country. And so we are called to choose very carefully and to choose people who listen to the cry of the poor, the cry of those who are around us with whom you are engaged in helping and doing best to lessen the difficulties that they undertake. And so that's the thing. Try to bring the voice of Christian believers, a strong cry to those who ultimately are the ones making the decisions. Choose them carefully, who will be your representative. Check them out. Do they really hear you? And then when you've checked them out, try to see, can we hold them to their word? Can we hold them to their promise? So often we get promises and pledges from political leaders, but we don't seem to have any way for holding them to their words. So that's the purpose of our gathering, and it's, to me, something very central to us as believers, disciples, missionary disciples of Jesus, and our concern, not just to care for those who have been damaged and hurt and left to one side by this division in our society, but doing something to bridge the gap separating us and to level our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the poem. That was incredibly inspiring. I can see lots of people clapping on the screens, and I could see lots of people commenting and thanking for that really powerful reflection. So thank you very much. So we will now have the opportunity to ask questions. We have another speaker for today, Ian Byrne, who is the MP for Liverpool, but he has informed us that he's running a little bit late. So we will hopefully hear from him a little bit later, as I'm sure everyone's aware the local elections have happened. So all politicians are very busy this weekend, but I'd encourage you now to post your questions in the chat. We will have about 10 minutes to answer any questions, and we're going to try our best to answer them all today. And if we can get through them all, please do email us afterwards. And after the Q&A, we're going to move on to tell you a little bit about to tell you a little bit more about how you can make your voices heard in your community. So we have a very good question today, which hopefully, Father Paul, you can help us answer. And the question is, how can we work to maintain friendship and community with our sisters and brothers in our society when there is so much division and different viewpoints?
Good question. And it strikes me very, very much that there's a huge difference between national leaders and so on and local level. I'm living in the southeast of London, and it's a very, very mixed area, very, very mixed in terms of ethnicity and religion and so on, and also to some extent also in terms of wealth. And all we can do, and what we must try to do, is at a local level, you can do a great deal to establish relationships with people who are not necessarily church members, not necessarily people that you meet regularly, but there are possibilities of meeting some way locally. And very often, I lived for many years in Russia, and at that time you were able to make close friends with people, for example, of the Orthodox Church, even though the leaders of their church would have been very critical and opposed to ourselves. But you can do at local level, you can establish really worthwhile relationships and friendships. And that goes a very, very long way. To some extent, city life tends to undermine local communities and local gatherings. But it's something I think that we need to really try and promote and get involved in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We have lots of other brilliant questions. So another one I think people would be really interested to hear your thoughts on is a question about how can we make the world aware of the gap the church has filled in providing social justice support to see this inequality addressed. So how do we raise awareness about the role of local churches to tackling poverty, because many outside the church might not be aware of that? Any reflections? Either Andrea or Father Paul?
Yes, I mentioned at the beginning Alan Paton. Well, he was a great author, and he highlighted for both communities in South Africa the gulf and the danger that they were all in. He made people aware of the others in the same society. We can't do that, most of us anyway. We're not authors with the skill that he had or the courage that he had. But I think the first thing is to make yourself aware of it, and that means to experience. It's interesting to go and be in, for example, every corner of the country, there's food banks and so on. It can be good to offer to spend a little while there, assisting, helping, meeting the people who are coming, and you get a personal experience that you might not have had before of people who are really struggling, who are working, who are trying, but who feel themselves left to one side. So the first person to inform is yourself, and inform yourself as much as you can from experience rather than from watching television or reading the news. Go and experience it in your own locality, and change yourself rather than thinking I'll change everybody in my street or in my parish.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. We have quite a few questions about voting and encouraging people to vote. So Andrea, I wonder if you have any reflections about how can people support in helping people to register to go and vote?
Yes, sure, Alex. There is an initiative running by Church Together that facilitate that process. And I don't know if we have the link now, or we can send the link later on in the email that we are going to send to everyone. Basically, communicating the importance, in the beauty of our parish is that we have already those communities there. And as Father Paul says, start these conversations and there is two things. One is the technical issue, how you actually register to vote, that sometimes people don't know, and we need to facilitate that. And the other is ensure that other people are invited to the reflection why voting is important, and especially for us as people of faith, as Christians. So yes, do as much as you can. That is really important. This particular initiative, A Year of Encounter, we are not doing any technical element of encouraging people to vote in that way. It's more about how to engage with the politicians in the running out for the election. But there is other initiatives, Christian initiatives that are doing that. And we encourage you to email us after the call, and we can put in contact with that and spread the word and share why voting is important as Catholics.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We would love to be able to answer all of the other amazing questions in the chat today, but we will keep track of them, and we will try and respond later if we have time. And thank you again, Father Paul, for your reflection. It was really, really moving and inspiring. So we will hopefully be able to hear from Ian Ben a little bit later on. But for now, Andrea, I'd like to pass over the word to you again to tell us a little bit more about the initiative.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Father Paul, for your reflections. Well, now that we talked a bit about why it's important for us to participate, this democratic participation, this community participation, this political participation in the broad sense of the word political, we would like to take you through the issues, some of the issues that we are inviting your parish and parishioners to talk to candidates. Those are 8 issues that directly or indirectly are related to our faith. There are all different manifestations of injustice. And these 8 issues, we have chosen these 8 issues because are issues that CAFOD and SVP has been working for a very long time, and are the issues that sit under our remit, are related to our faith, are things that we care about as people of faith, but also are sit under our remit. So we are very conscious, and we wanted to acknowledge that there is many other issues that are really important to our faith, and your parish or yourself would like also to speak about these issues with your candidate. And we welcome you to do so, and you can connect and liaise with other groups and organizations that will be doing that. It's not one on another. This is an invitation, and you should adapt it to the reality of your parish and your community, and also talk about the issues that we are inviting you to talk about. So there are 8 issues that we are, as I say, inviting to choose, but we suggest that amongst these 8 issues, you choose not more than 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top, ideally no more than 3, because we cannot talk about everything, unfortunately. And also be aware that this is initial conversation with our candidate. Hopefully, once our MP is elected, we can continue building the relationship with our representative. This is just the beginning, right? So we will have the opportunity after the election to continue this dialogue and building that relationship. So in terms of choosing one of the 8 issues, that could look like, for example, let's say that your community has been hugely impacted by the cost of living, like so many communities in our country. And as a result of that, your parish is running a food bank. And so you choose, okay, we wanted to talk to candidates about the cost of living, but also in my parish, we have been campaigning passionate about the CAFOR Fix the Food System campaign. When my parish last year supported the letter from Salina, and a small farmer from Bangladesh, asking the World Bank to support the right of small farmers to freely access to their own variety of seeds, because everything starts with seeds. So let's say that, so you decide that your parish want to talk about food system and the cost of living, and that this is your case. Or you can be in a parish that feel very strong about migration. I feel very strong also about human rights and climate. So you choose that. How you do it, it's up to you and the people of your parish. But the idea is that you talk about the candidates, about those issues. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that it's really important to be aware that you don't need to be an expert to talk about those issues. As I said last time in the other training session, you don't need to be an expert in food system, an expert in economics, to know that it's absolutely undefendable that in one of the most rich countries in the world, like the UK is, I think that we are the 6th bigger economy in the world, we are facing what we are facing. We are suffering from food insecurity. There is food banks, and the numbers that we are witness now. It's absolutely undefendable, that, and it's absolutely unacceptable. So don't feel that you need to be an expert in climate or in migration to know what is right and what is not. Having said that, we are providing briefings and materials, and you can have a chat with our expert or your people of your parish if you want to feel super confident to discuss those issues. But we don't need to be experts to know what we need and the type of society that we need to build on. So these two things. So now that we share that we have these 8 issues, that we invite you to choose few of them, and also that you don't need to be an expert, I am going to pass on Alex to start sharing those issues. We are going to our 8 issues, and we are going to go as quickly as we can. And so I'm going to pass over you, Alex, so you start sharing some of the issues that we invite you to talk to.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you very much.
So we have a couple of slides to share with you. So as Andrea said, we're going to be talking to you about a little bit about some of the issues that we are encouraging you to talk to your candidates about. So we're just about to share the screen. Bear with us a second. Yeah. Could we have the screens shared? Just bear with us a second, small glitch. There we go. Okay. Design. Is it slideshow? There. Here we go. Thank you very much. So the first issue that we are inviting everyone to talk to their candidates about is the cost of living crisis, which we all know is by no means over. So Pope Francis said that poverty must always be understood and engaged in the context of the actual opportunities available in each concrete historical period. So he's inviting us to look at the current time and the current poverty issues facing society at the time we're living in. And as we know, the cost of living crisis is still an issue for many people, millions, in fact, of people in families, that this is pushing an increasing number of families into poverty. The latest poverty stats show that almost 2 million people used the food bank in 2022. And the latest data from the government also shows us that there are more than 14 million, that's 14 million people living in poverty, which is really a staggering number. And that includes about 4.3 million children who don't have enough to live on and are having to rely on churches and local charities to meet their basic needs. And at the SPP in the last year, we've also seen a really worrying 49% increase in requests for help for our services. So we know that this crisis is affecting everyone, but it's disproportionately affecting people who are already vulnerable who are already in living on low incomes, as well as older people, people with disabilities. And so we believe that urgent action must be taken to address this. So what do we want to see? We are calling for an essential guarantee, which means that a basic level of universal credit should be increased to cover at least the cost of essentials, such as food, bills, and baby products. And what we want to know from local candidates, if they are elected, is whether they will commit to improving our social security system by raising the basic rate of universal credit so people can meet their essential needs and avoid destitution. Our next issue we will be talking about is the need to build resilient communities and tackling regional inequalities. So this is a really important issue that we're very much aware of at the SVP because we've got a presence in different parts of England and Wales. And we know that regional inequalities are leaving millions of people in communities behind and with very little support to live and to thrive. So we know that the regional divide must be an urgent priority for the next government. So what we think the government should do is to commit to tackling regional inequalities and improving local and economic outcomes for left behind area. So what do we want to see? We're calling on policymakers to work more closely with local and regional stakeholders like charities such as the SVP, because we are experts in our communities. We know what the local issues are, and we can work with politicians to help them identify what the solutions to local problems are, whether that's access to jobs, reviving the high street. There are a number of issues, so we want to help tackle this. And it's also vital that the important role that charities and faith groups play in supporting local communities is acknowledged, and that we are given more support to be able to continue performing this role. The other issue that we are encouraging you all to talk to your candidates about is the issue of asylum and migration. And there's a very powerful quote from Pope Francis here, who we know talks a lot about this. So he says that Christian compassion, this suffering with compassion, is expressed first of all in the commitment to obtain knowledge of the events that force people to leave their homeland, whatever those events may be, and when necessary, to give voice to those who cannot manage to make their cry of distress and oppression heard. So this is a very, very important issue. So in the past year, we've seen more and more people tragically losing their lives trying to cross the channel to seek sanctuary in the UK. And those who do make it to the UK face a really long wait for a decision on their claim and are often housed in unsuitable and unsafe accommodation, including children. And they're often isolated from the communities they could be a part of. So what would we like to see? What we want to see is very simple. We want to see an asylum system based on principles of compassion, humanity, and dignity at its core. And we believe that it's vital that for this to happen, this compassionate system to happen, the right to seek asylum is reinstated. We would like to see people in the asylum system given the opportunities to support themselves through work so that they can contribute and integrate themselves in the community where they are. And we want to see those getting refugee status well placed so that they can thrive in their communities. So I'm now going to pass over to Andrea again, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the other issues.
Thank you, Alex. And one of the other issues that we invite your parish to talk to candidates about is food systems. The current global food system is broken. It's not working for people and planet. In spite of the fact that we are producing enough food to feed everyone, around 2.4 billion people do not have regular access to food, including our country, as we just mentioned. So last year, probably your parish were one of amongst the 764 parish that support the CAFOR campaign, Fix the Food System, and support Salina letter. We sent the letter to the World Bank asking to protect the fundamental right of small farmers to access to seeds. So we want a food system that works for everyone, to work for people and planet, and to protect small farmers who are responsible to produce a significant amount of the world food. Next one. Thank you. Other big issue, obvious, climate. If you're a CAFOR supporter, you probably have been campaigning for a very long time on climate. You know, our faith calls us to take care of creation. Climate is one of the biggest issues of our time. As a result of the climate crisis, poverty, inequality, and many other problems arise. And we are asking whoever is in the government and to talk to your candidates about these issues to stop spending on fossil fuel in the UK and abroad. The other issue that we invite you to talk, if you feel like to do, the next slide, is business and human rights. So at the moment with our organization, we are calling for a piece of legislation that we protect basically people and planet with big companies, corporations, UK corporations are operating in other countries as part of the supply chain. Not always do the right things, and sometimes they commit abuses to people and the environment. Unfortunately, CAFOR has very first-hand experience working with some of our partners and some of our communities. So we are asking for a piece of legislation that will protect people and planet for those abuses. The other issue is, obviously, CAFOR is an agency of international development, and most of you have heard that recently there were cuts in the aid budget. We want to restore the budget that was cut to 0.7. The fact that we make this huge cut in the international development budget that by law was agreed has generated a lot of crises and problems to many of the communities around the world that we have been supporting. And there is a beautiful quote here for John Paul II, you know, that I feel particularly very inspiring on. I don't know if people might have time to read it, but it is really inspiring. We can post it later on the chat. And the other issue is also debt cancellation. So many of you might be in this call, might remember the iconic Jubilee 2000 campaign, where we campaigned globally. The Christian community play a key role in this country, and as a result of that, that leads to the cancellation of over 100 billions of debt owned by 35 of the poorest countries in the world. Unfortunately, we are in another debt crisis because the structural causes that generate this situation in low-income countries is still happening. And also COVID-19 and other factors has really affected those countries. So we are asking for debt cancellation, another aspect of this campaign. And I think that CAFOR right now launched an action on debt cancellation that you can probably see in the chat too. But this is something really important that we should talk about, especially also that next year is the Jubilee. And that iconic campaign happened exactly in the previous Jubilee of the church. And I think that all these 8 issues that we invite you to speak to the candidates about, as I say, you don't need to be an expert, and we are providing, we will talk later on, briefings and statistics as all the support that you need. But I think that this is for the moment. Now we are going to take a very short break, just 5 minutes to stretch your leg and have a cup of tea. We are aiming to finish at 1 o'clock earlier, hopefully, a little earlier. So please come back in 5 minutes, go for your cup of tea, come back in 5 minutes, because in 5 minutes we are going to talk about the nitty and gritty, how you can talk to your candidates, and the 3 simple things that you can do to do so, which are very simple. So we leave you and we see you in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Hi everyone, thank you for staying with us. We will begin in a minute, I believe. Just give everyone a chance to stretch their legs and get a cup of tea. You can see that lots of people have rejoined, which is great. So I believe we're going to start again for our second part of the session. Again, thank you very much for staying with us. So now, having talked about the purpose of this initiative and the issue that we would like everyone to talk about, what we're going to do next is tell you a little bit more about how practically you can engage with the local candidates. And there's a couple of questions in the chat before about this, so we will do our best to answer them, but we're also going to have a little bit of time afterwards to answer any more questions. So the first thing that you can do today is to register for this initiative. And this is the most important thing at the moment, because once you register, we will be able to send you all of the information that we'll talk about today, and we will be able to keep you up to date. And our colleagues are going to now share the links in the chat so you can easily register. There is a site for CAFOD, there is a site for the SVP. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, if you have an association with one of the two, but if not, it doesn't really matter. The information is the same. So that's the first thing that we urge everyone to do today. The next thing we encourage everyone to do as part of this initiative, and this is really important, is to contact the candidates. So we have created very simple tools that you can use to contact your candidates of any political party and every political party to help you pose the questions to them. So this tool will be made live 2 weeks after the election is announced. So we still don't know when the general election might happen, but it's very important to start organising now. So it's very important for now to register and start thinking about which people in your parish, in your local group, can take part. Which are the issues out of the 8 that we mentioned before? Which are the ones that matter to you? Start having those conversations, start sharing the resources. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And this is very important because by contacting their candidates, we will be able to put forward a very clear message as to what our priorities are. And candidates will be looking for messages from their constituents to understand what their priorities are. So if we can send a clear and consistent message across the country, that will really resonate with them. Next slide. The other thing that we've produced to help you take part is a template. So this template is available on the online booklet, which is online. And again, there are links in the chat, and we will also be able to post this to you if you're interested. So we've produced this template to help you get started in crafting messages to candidates, but we also encourage everyone, perhaps in your local parish, in your local SVP conference, local CAFOD group, to discuss this and make it a little bit more personal so that candidates can understand that this is a real priority for you. So this template will be made available in the tool that I've mentioned before, which will go live 2 weeks after the election is called. So really we encourage everyone to make these messages personal, because that is going to help get the attention of your candidates. Next slide, please. The next thing that we encourage people to do, for those of you who feel a little bit more creative, is to create a video. So this is an example of the video that we made together at CAFOD and the SVP just outside our offices. So if you do feel a little bit more creative, what you can do is film yourself with a phone in a very simple way, asking the questions to your candidates and send it to them. And please do also let us know, because this can be a more engaging and creative way of engaging with candidates. And Andrea, now can you tell us a little bit more about the other things that people can do to take part in the initiative?
Thank you, Alex. Indeed. So as Alex mentioned, we are asking your parish as a parish, because parish are the physical representation of our local faith community in that particular constituency, to do the three things. Each of the things can be do differently, as Alex showed. So one is, Alex mentioned, contact your candidate, whether with a video, whether with the email that we put together, but contact your candidate about the questions that you have, the issues that you have chosen in your parish. Action number 2, which I shouldn't be saying that, but I will say it anyway. This is the one that I really, really like it. And we encourage you to do the 3 of them if you can. Action number 2 is attending a hosting together with people from your parish. Together. So that look like, in practicality, look like your parish decide that you wanted to talk about the cost of living and food system. And you already sent an email to your candidate or a video about asking what are their views about these 2 issues. So now you organize with other parishioners that we are going to go to this particular local hosting. We here in the slide say where you can find out where your local hostings are. If you cannot find out where your local hosting is, contact us and we will help you to identify those hostings. So together, let's say that in my parish, we have 15 people that are happy to go that Thursday evening to a hosting together. And before the hosting, we organize ourselves. For those 15 people who are happy to ask a question, and let's say that 10 of us say, yes, we are going to be brave and we are going to raise our hands to ask a question. So each of these 10 people has a question already ready. And if we are lucky, we go to the hosting, we tend to sit down in different places because this is increase the chances that we are going to be chosen to ask a question. And let's say that from the 10 people that have a question ready, 4 of us or 5 of us are chosen to ask a question. So suddenly we have 5 people in a hosting that sometimes could be between 20 or 300 people asking a question about food system, for example, or a question about the cost of living, for example. And that sends a very clear message, not only to the candidate, but also to the other groups and people, members of your community. And also we are inviting to do that without being a shy Catholic. So the idea, if you feel comfortable, I would stand up and I say, hi, I'm Andrea. I have been living in my community Streatham for 14 years. I'm a Catholic. In my parish, we do a lot of work around, helping people because the cost of living has hugely affected all of us here, what you are planning to do. Or the same about food systems. And imagine if we have 3, 4, 5, 6 people more saying, hi, I'm also a Catholic, I'm also for that parish or the other parish. That's sent a message. So we have the hostings. It's important to clarify that we are not inviting you to organize hostings. Although if your parish wanted or you wanted to liaise with other Christian groups or other initiatives that are going to do that, we are welcome and we can support you to organize a hosting, but we are not inviting parish to organize a hosting for a variety of reasons, and one of them is the complexity. But we are just inviting you to attend the hostings as a group in an organized way. So this is action number 2. And action number 3, which is a bit of luck somehow, we know that during election time, and probably on this Thursday, we have the local elections, we have the candidates of political parties knock your door. So again, don't be shy when they knock your door, and then we are going to talk later about that. Take the CAFOR card with all the issues. Let's say that your parish, as I say, is really into cost of living and food system, and say, hi, I'm Andrea, I'm a Catholic, and I really care about food system. What your political party or you are going to do about this? And again, we have the same questions again and again and again. Obviously, this is, we don't know whether or not you are going to, your door is going to be knocked, but it's good to be ready, and we will help you how to be ready. So the idea with these 3 different activities: contact your candidate via the email link that CAFOR SVP is putting together, or by attending the hostings, or by talking to people in the doorstep when they knock your door. The idea is that candidates heard the same questions in all the different spaces that they are going to be. They're going to be receiving emails, they are going to be in the hustings, and they are going to be knocking doors. The same questions by the same group, in this case, you know, the Catholic community or the Christian community, to ensure that they get that we are visible and we are active and we want change. So these are the three things that we are planning to do. So, and as I say, if it's not clear enough, don't worry. It's everything in the booklet. It's everything. We can talk later. You can email us. This is just the beginning, as I say. So now I am conscious that some of you, maybe I heard sometimes that say, oh, Andrea, this is really good. This is really nice. But in my parish, we are not be able to do it because I don't feel confident enough. We don't have the skills to do that. Or, you know, I have a really high profile MP who is standing again. I feel really intimidated by politicians sometimes. We would like to do it, but we don't feel ready to do it. So if you are one of these people, I would like to share with you the testimonial of Petula. Petula is one of CAFOD supporters and volunteers. Petula in 2021, when the country was in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis and our parish were closed, and many of us were really struggling because whether we were losing our jobs or whether we were losing our beloved ones because of the pandemic, we organized an initiative called Parliament in Your Parish. And this initiative was about inviting the Catholic community as a parish to reach out to our MPs to talk about climate, because the UK government was hosting COP26, the climate talks in Glasgow. So we want to talk to our representative about this issue. And in the middle of this crisis, it couldn't be more difficult. Parish come together and we managed to have meetings in 110 constituencies. We have meetings with Theresa May, we have meetings with Jeremy Hunt, and many of the people who attend those meetings or organize this meeting never has organized a meeting before. And the situation was very complex, as we all know and we remember very well. So I wanted to share, Petula, if you're in the call, are you in the call?
I'm right here, thank you, yes.
Thank you, Petula. I pass over you to inspire all of us.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Petula Nurse. I live in Wolverhampton in the Archdiocese of Birmingham. And today I will give you an insight into my Parliament in Your Parish journey. So as Andrea said, in 2021, CAFOD announced an initiative for parishioners to discuss tackling issues with their MP, for them to then raise our concerns with the government ahead of the G7 summit and the COP26 climate change conference. Now, the issues were very similar. They were on climate change, on just foreign debt, and how we can rebuild after the pandemic. When I saw this invitation, I was interested in learning how to organise a meeting with an MP. And I wanted to raise my awareness on the social justice issues. In Wolverhampton, we were a new parish of 3 churches and we didn't know each other. We were still in lockdown, our churches were not open at the time, and I was doing my CAFOD Big Lent walk. And my parish priest introduced me to a parishioner who had previously volunteered with CAFOD. And so we had a chat. And he suggested that I should join him and another parishioner to do the Parliament in Your Parish CAFOD training, just like we're doing today. And at the training session, the people seemed enthusiastic. They were well versed in lobbying their MP and they knew what they were talking about. I listened. I felt out of my depth and didn't feel it was something that I could do. But it was great to participate as an observer, and I just left it at that. Now, back in my parish, the other parishioners had not attended the training and suggested that I fill them in, as they wanted the parish to take part and would assist if I would lead the campaign. Now, I must emphasise that I hadn't done anything like that before and didn't know where to start, what to do. I had my doubts, not knowing the other parishioners. I was nervous, and I knew it would be challenging, especially if the people were not serious about this. And certainly I didn't want to do it blind and on my own. However, having completed the training, I actually felt committed, and the concept about putting my faith into action kept coming back to my mind. So to challenge myself, I decided I would lead the Parliament in Your Parish campaign with the parishioners from each church. And so the Blessed Carlo Acutis Parish CAFOD group was formed with 9 people. In April 2021, we started planning, allocating tasks and responsibilities, and researching and communicating all via Zoom meetings. Now, fortunately, CAFOD had all the advice we needed for the campaign, and we took one step at a time. Our actual virtual meeting with our MP, Stuart Anderson, who is a local Conservative for Wolverhampton South West, this meeting took place on a Friday 11th of June at 1:30 till 2 o'clock with the Catholic community and people of other faiths and people with no faiths. We welcomed our MP and the 26 attendees, and the Zoom meeting was opened with a prayer. The MP introduced himself, gave an insight into his life and work in Parliament. We asked the MP the questions suggested by CAFOD, and these were given to him beforehand so it wouldn't be a surprise on the day, and he could provide answers. We also asked additional questions that were related and came from the attendees from the Zoom chat. Now, the MP addressed our concerns, but did not focus on the international issues raised and the government's commitment to actually tackle global poverty and injustice. His response considered the possible impact of raising these issues on the local constituents and whether this would be of any benefit or in fact create additional expenses for Wolverhampton. He did plan to raise our concerns with Parliament and send us copies of his correspondence with ministers. And he also suggested we arrange a follow-up question and answer session with him to continue with the dialogue. We sent him a thank you email for joining the meeting, and we enclosed an article for him to include in his constituency newsletter. We updated the CAFOD campaign team on the outcome of our meeting with screenshots and pictures of parishioners signing the petition cards, and CAFOD then prepared a publicity press release for BBC Midlands Today and also for our local press. Now, if like me, you have no experience of presenting issues to local candidates, I would say don't worry, persevere. CAFOD is there to help. You need to work as a team using the CAFOD guidance notes and actually ask the candidates the CAFOD questions. As a faith community, we felt it was worth building a relationship with our local MP to have a voice at the community level. And we showed that Catholics should play a vital role in ensuring that politicians put the poorest communities at the heart of these meetings to create a better world. Now, our parish felt that the Parliament in Your Parish meeting with our MP united us and actually reflected the diversity in our constituency. And the session was enriched by the diverse faith community having a common aim. And it also brought our 3 Catholic churches together. On reflection, I felt campaigning does make a difference. You can't just leave it to someone else. You can be part of the change by voicing the injustice. Maybe someone else will see you and think they can do something too. I'd never actually met my MP before organising a big meeting with him, but I thought I'd give it a go. It's just one step at a time. And later I was told that I had actually organised one of CAFOD's biggest Parliament in Your Parish meetings with our MP, despite never actually having lobbied him before. But I must admit, I did pray, may I have the courage and strength to bring about change in whatever way I can. And I hope I did make a difference. And I hope you actually feel inspired now to get involved with a small parish group to present the issues of poverty and injustice to your local candidate in the run-up to the election.
Fantastic. Thank you. I could see lots of people clapping. Thank you so much, Petula. As always, I think this is so inspiring to actually hear that. And I'd see you absolutely made a difference. And even just today, I think help inspiring other people and help people understand that you don't need to be an expert. It can be done with some support. It's really, really inspiring. So thank you so much, Petula, and for making the time to be here again today.
Thank you.
So I believe we have Ian Ben on the call with us today. It's great that he was able to join us. So Ian Ben is the MP for Liverpool West Derby. He is a Catholic and has been a very important voice in Parliament, championing the need to tackle poverty. He sits on the APPG for Tackling Food Bank and also the CAFOD APPG. So he very kindly agreed to come and talk to us today on a very busy weekend as to why he was inspired to get involved in politics and why using our voice as Catholic is very important ahead of the general election. And so Ian, I believe he's on a call today.
Yeah, look, thanks very much for giving the opportunity, and apologies, I think it should have been on a little bit earlier. I just sort of give it a bit of background, really, what's happened this weekend. A background on me first. As I said, I'm the MP for Liverpool West Derby. I'm also the extremely proud chair of the parliamentary group, what CAFOD have got in Parliament. I was elected to that this year, and it's a real honour to hold that position and use that position as well. What the last caller just outlined fantastically well, I think, was the need for accountability from politicians. And I'll touch on that after they've just outlined why I'm here today. So in the background, I'm outside. You can see a fantastic building, which is St. Vincent's School for the Blind. The first school for the blind in the world, a Catholic school. And today and yesterday, we've had graduates down from Westminster University and teachers, educators. And what they've decided to do is come into communities like Liverpool. They're going to Belfast tomorrow. They're going to Cork. They're going to Dublin. And it's all part of a National World Congress from the World Public Health Organisation, which they're holding in June, I think, the middle of June, in London, in Westminster University. And they've been working with them for the last 8 months on how we could shape that. And part of that was getting them out of the bubble in London and the university bubble and getting them into places like Liverpool. So yesterday we took them to one of the food pantries that we run. We come to St. Vincent's to speak to some of the pupils on how poverty and food poverty is impacting them, and also the help that they're actually given. So this school grow fruit, vegetables, and they cook soups and cakes, and they feed the homeless in Liverpool, which, if anything, encapsulates what being a Catholic's about. For me, that's a prime example of what can be done. So I'm very privileged to have this school in my constituency. And today, we also went to St. Cecilia's school, another Catholic school, and talked to the graduates from London about how poverty was impacting them, but also solutions, universal free school meals that could be implemented, the right to food, which is about what the Congress is about. And obviously I lead on that in Parliament, something which I firmly believe in, and United CAFOD has taken up that fight as well regarding tackling poverty, both here in the UK and abroad. Today, we've took them back to St. Vincent's to speak to the 100 special education need pupils who are currently swimming around the corner, and speaking to the parents about the impact austerity is having on their life and the impact, the cuts, the vital services. And it's been really enlightening for them. And also, I think it's worth pointing out that we've got graduates from right across the globe, from India to Ghana to Nigeria, to Albania. So it's a very varied bunch, and they've had a good time actually showing them what we're trying to do in Liverpool. So that's the context of why I'm standing outside the school today talking to you. I think what's important as well is, I think what Petuna, I think Elaine, the last caller, talked about accountability. And I think it's absolutely hugely important that you hold your MPs to account, but not just MPs, every single elected official. You know, what are they doing in your community? Are they adhering to the principles that we believe in? Are they going to sign up to what we're trying to do to change the world, i.e. right to food and things like that, universal free school meals? What's their opinion on them? What's the opinion of the state of the country at the moment? I think it's hugely important that we have the parliamentary get-togethers, what's been outlined, and sitting your parliamentary candidates down ahead of the election, ensuring that your voices are heard, that they hear your voices, you're going to vote for them at the ballot box. And for me, accountability is absolutely everything regarding electing any official who's going to represent your community on a local level or a national level. And I think it's hugely important that we do that. And it's been absolutely fascinating speaking to the graduates from across the globe, as I said, and we've had conversations just now about how politics in Nigeria seem to be completely dislocated. They can never get the opportunity to speak to officials. So I think they've been a little bit shocked coming here over the last couple of days and seeing how we interact with the community, how we're answerable. And I think that's been a little bit of an eye-opener for them. And I think hopefully you can take that back, because for me, that's absolutely everything. Politicians are there to represent you in the community. Politicians are there to ensure that your voices are taken into places like Westminster. And that's something I've believed in all my life. And now I'm in this privileged position of being an MP. I'm in this privileged position of having the ability to actually listen to voices from right across the community and bringing them into Parliament, whether you agree with them or whether you don't. There's a conversation to be had. And I think there's so many debates at the moment. There's so many issues that we're facing nationally, locally, globally. And I think it's absolutely imperative that every single voice is heard and politicians listen and represent views across the board. And I think that's the fundamental tenets of democracy. And to be fair, some of the things that I'm seeing at the moment horrify me. I think what we're seeing in America with regards to student protests getting shut down, school teachers getting dragged to the ground in violence. It's just extremely worrying what we're seeing. And I think it's so important that CAFOD do take up that baton of democratic accountability, of ensuring that voices are heard, of ensuring that democracy functions as it should do. Because if you're scared to listen to voices, if you're scared to not listen to all voices, if you're scared and you're shutting down democracy, well then that's not good. It's not good for this country, it's not good for any country, it's not good for the world globally. So I think CAFOD's got a role to play in making sure that Catholics' voice are heard, because, my faith's a huge part of why I'm in this role. It's a huge part of how I try and conduct myself in this job. No one's perfect, but I think the underpinning that you have as a Catholic's important to us all. And I think that's really shapes what I try and do. So, as I said, unfortunately, I can't stay and answer any questions, but if anyone's got any questions, please feed them in. I'm delighted to answer. And I think the more of these we have, both local and national level, as we're going to come up to the election, which potentially now looking at the world as it stands now, it's probably in this country, it's probably going to be October, November. So I think you all need to get out there, make sure that your MPs are sitting before congregations, answering questions, local councillors, metro mayors, anybody that has got a democratic mandate. Let's use that mandate to make sure that your voices are heard. And the asks of our campaign, what we're running with CAFOD around tackling poverty nationally and globally, resonate across all the halls of power. I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ian. So you had, unfortunately, can't take any questions, but we still encourage everyone to post your questions in the chat, and we're going to do our best to answer them. So thank you very much for making the time after sounds like a very busy morning.
I've actually got 5 minutes. I'm just looking now. So if anyone's got anything, any burning question you want to ask in the next 5 minutes, I'm happy to.
Thank you so much. So we'll try and get through them quickly. So we've got a question which is about, it's a big one. What's the most important thing that the government should do to tackle poverty?
But I think they've got to, I think just to answer that in the round without getting into detail, I think we've got to tackle poverty with the ferocity and the intensity and the desire, like you were going into a war. And I think that's what we want, war on poverty. And I genuinely believe that we want to throw every single resource that we've got as a nation globally. And I think that's how, for me, how minds are focused. And I think it's got to be with that same intensity. And, you know, it is quite funny how politicians do seem to find money when we're talking about arming armies. Well, then I think we have to have that same intensity about tackling poverty.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. If you have time, I have one more question, which I think it's very important, and it's about hope and apathy. So we had some questions about how can we inspire people to find hope again and fight against apathy when it comes to getting involved in these kind of conversations. What can we do to inspire people and give them hope, both to Ian and Father Paul, possibly? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
No problem.
It's a very good question. I think a lot of politicians are talking about potential votes of apathy. And for me, it's about giving a vision. It's about giving a vision to change, about giving a vision of hope. It's about giving people a vision for the better future, for the better country, for the fairer, more equitable country. And I think if we outline that, and we outline that it affects every single person in this country's politics, and it can actually be utilised as a tool for making your life better, for improving you and your family's ambitions. And I think that for me is fundamentally so important, that politics for positive change, I think, can defeat apathy. And I think that's where I'd like to see the direction of travel from a policy point of view from politicians in this country.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that sounds great. And Father Paul, did you have any other reflection as well on hope and apathy?
A very small thing. It seems to me, bit like Petula was saying to us, beginning, and you're afraid to begin, but you can begin with just 2 or 3 people. This is a reminiscence from a long time ago. I was part of a university college in Dublin. And there were a couple of people there who returned from foreign countries, and the issue came up about fair trade goods. And 3 or 4 people got together and said, come on, there's no fair trade coffee down in Tesco's. So one went down and asked for, I'm looking for fair trade coffee. Do you oh, no, we don't have, sorry. Anything else? No, we don't need anything else. That's all I wanted. And over the next 2 or 3 days, different people came in, one after the other. Everybody, old, young, men, women, students and teachers and types, all asking for free trade coffee. And when they were told, no, we don't have it, they walked out of the shop. Before the week was ended, there was a whole shelf of free trade coffee. They listened to their persistence, and from a tiny group, that group then suddenly felt we can change things. They began only on getting a coffee in the Tesco's, but they began to feel we can work together and do something as a group rather than as individuals. So good, beginning small.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that's a perfect example. I think begin small, really, and build from there. So I think we've run out of time, unfortunately, for questions, but I'd like to thank everyone. We'll go over the resources in a minute, but I would really like to thank Ian Ben for making the time to join us today and for sharing your reflections with us. Thank you very much. So we also had a few technical questions today in the chat, which we're going to try and address. But what we're going to do now is go over the resources that will be available to you, because a lot of those questions will be answered in this part of the presentation, so do stay with us. And then if we haven't been able to answer those questions, we'll get back to them. So if we could please share the slides. Thank you. Thank you. So we've talked now, we're coming almost to an end of the session, so do stay with us because this is a very important part. So we've talked about why we're taking part in this initiative and what are the issues that we'll be talking about. So the resources and tools are very important. So what we've done is produced a number of assets that you can use to help you learn more about the initiative and feel empowered to have those conversations with candidates. So the first thing that we've produced is the booklet. You can see on the left-hand side here on the screen, a picture of it. We've produced a booklet, both the SVP and CAFOD, which is available both online, and we've shared the links in the chat, but we will also send you the links again after this webinar is finished. So we will send an email on Tuesday with all of the links. So we've got this booklet with all of the resources and information and questions that we've talked about today. And we also have physical copies of the booklet. So if you would like physical copies of the booklet and you would like a couple of copies to discuss in your group or parish, do email us and we will be able to post you physical copies free of charge. We've also produced flyers and posters, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the poster, which again, you can order from us and we will post you a copy. And we encourage you to put up the poster in your parish hall, in the room where you meet as a group. And in that poster, there is a space where you can talk about when you would be meeting. So the invitation is to invite other people in your parish to join you as well. Next slide, please. The other resource that we've produced are supporter briefings. Again, these are all available on the web pages that we've shared, and we've produced very simple 2-page briefings on each of the 8 issues that you've heard about today. And the idea is to give everyone a bit of an insight and help you feel a little bit more empowered and confident in having those conversations. No one is expected to be an expert in any of these single issues, but hopefully by having access to this information, you'll be able to find out a little bit more about what the issues involve exactly and what are the questions for candidates. So these are all available as well. Next slide, please. And now Andrea is going to tell us a little bit more about some of the other resources available.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. I think that you cover most of it. As I say here in the slides are the links, whether you want the booklets and the resources online and you can download it, or whether you want the hard copies. And you can email SVP, or you can go to the CAFOR shop or email CAFOR and we are going to send it. Also, something really important, SVP and CAFOR has regional staff in each of your dioceses. So please, if you want to do this or you need support, be aware that you can contact our regional staff, or you can contact us and we can put you in touch with our regional staff in your diocese, and they can support you. There are going to be more meetings and more informal training sessions at diocese level, at regional level. If you want to be connected with someone else, you don't find someone in your parish, please get back to us. As I always say, nobody's alone here. We are one body, we are working together, it's just one voice. And that's I think that is all for now. This is just the beginning. So please get in touch with all the questions we are going. If you have the question that we couldn't respond, please get back to us and we will going to respond it later on. And I think, Alex, that we are getting to the end. I would like to finalize. We always finalize with a closing prayer. But before that, I would like to share with everyone a quote from Cardinal Nichols, who I think actually this week, he put together a really nice, useful video that we were planning to show it, but at the end we couldn't. And he says that there is many ways in which we as a Catholic community try and make our contribution to the good of society. Voting is another way in which we exercise responsibility. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We hugely appreciate that you are taking a Saturday morning to be here. Hopefully you find this training session useful, and the resources that we put together are too. So we are just closing, but before that is the prayer that I am going to pass over Father Paul again. And Father, I would like to share with you that we have a tradition in CAFOR to close the prayer. If you can read the prayer, but everyone can unmute too. So we have this cacophony, I don't know the word in English, all together. It's really messy, but it's really powerful. So Father, if you can start and we all join praying together.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so we pray. Mary,
You heard God's call.
May we be polarized, deeply in our polarizing
Mary,
so
joyfully
joyfully
be willing to challenge
inequality
for fullness of life for all. And drive others and seek the disciples of Pentecost. Pray that the Spirit will empower us to
Amen.
The Spirit will empower us as we act together.
Thank you so much, Father, and thank you, everyone. God bless.
God bless.
Can I just make a couple of points?
Bye.
Make a couple of points.
Wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Bye.
It's
Thank you.
Bye.